The Utah Jazz get beat early, often, and a lot all night by the New Orleans Pelicans. And Ron and I are here because if we didn't show up, you'd bag on us for not showing up after a game like this. Whether we have any brilliant insight or not, highly debatable. It's coming up next on Postcast. Postcast, David Locke along with Ron Boone. And honestly, we're here because it'd be inappropriate to not show up. And then you'd think we were like ducking a performance like this. But the story of the night coming in, the Jazz had won 9 of 10. The Pelicans had won 3 in a row. They, since adding C.J. McCollum, were the number 5 offense overall, number 2 overall, number 5 in non-blowout time. They were the 9th best defense. They were crazy long. They beat their last opponents handily. They blew out the Lakers by 30. They beat Sacramento by 30. They beat Phoenix. And the question tonight was a great test for the Pelicans to see whether they were for real against one of the best teams in the league, and they hit the Jazz early and often. The analogy that we've come up with is the Jazz were a diminutive middle linebacker trying to tackle Jerome Bettis rolling through the middle of the offensive line. And I mean, it was varsity versus junior varsity all night. It was really something.
Yeah, it definitely was, David. And I didn't know what to expect from these guys. You know, looking at the team that they've beaten here, 8-4 since the first part of February. And they beat the Lakers, they beat Toronto, they beat Denver, and they beat another team that was pretty good. But Denver, did I say Denver?
Yeah, you did.
Denver. So, but they've beaten 4 teams that respectable. And so I didn't really know what to expect from this team. I did know that they, you know, was on a winning streak. Who was the other team? Would have been Phoenix. They beat the Phoenix Suns. So it's didn't know what to expect, but I saw exactly, you know, the difference in this team now than what we saw here back in the first part of January.
Secondary scorer in C.J. McCollum, but the length is what jumped out to me more than anything else, Ron. We just looked, you know, Willie Green said we have to break their patterns. Our guys were driving in the lane. Their guy was still on them, and somebody else would reach in and knock the ball away. Pelicans ended up with 11 steals today. Our guys didn't look like they had much of any shooting windows. The ball certainly didn't pop. It was something to watch how much they undid the Jazz offense with their length.
And what you just said there, the shooting windows, they didn't have them. And why? Because they were attacking the Jazz defensively when they were. So the draw and kick, in other words, wasn't there. And even though the Jazz got up 41 3-point shots, they were not comfortable 3-point shots. And once you start struggling and you know, you can't knock those threes down, open things up there in the middle, just didn't happen for the Jazz. But you have games like this, David. Over the years, you just mentioned what?
We pretty much found every game of every team of every iteration of the Utah Jazz had a game of this sort. Stockton and Malone just decided to do theirs in the middle of the NBA Finals.
Yeah. But it's awfully tough, I think, to change your defense, to start working on a defense and not get a chance to get that defense set. They pushed the ball up the floor, and I like to think that they were playing fast, but the numbers don't say they were playing fast. But what they did do, and what I really like, was that they pushed the ball up the floor. If there was something there, they take it. Otherwise, they get into their offense. And what that does is that instead of having when you're starting to get into your offense at 13, 14 seconds on the clock, they were getting to their offense at 19. And that extra seconds on the clock really helps get to that second and third option of your offense.
The interesting one here from the Pelicans standpoint, this is definitely the Pelicans had a vibe to them. Their bench was standing the whole time. There was an energy to them. There was a play where one of the guys went down and 4 guys ran over and picked him up. Like, they have a newness and a juice to them right now that is a momentum that they couldn't. The contrast has to be the Lakers. And ironically enough, they're battling for a position. They moved within 1 game of the Lakers now for the 9th spot in the West. That's important because the play-in game is 7 versus 8 and then 9 versus 10.
Yeah.
So the way it's trending is they very well could host the Los Angeles Lakers here for a play-in game.
And they would beat them.
And
they would definitely beat them.
And then they would go and play the loser of the Clippers and the Timberwolves at whatever building that is, and be very interesting to see. This very well could be a 8 seed playoff team by the time you see them next against the Phoenix Suns, and that length could possibly bother Chris Paul a little bit. Like it's in, and then who knows about Zion. So the Pelicans become a very interesting team in this Western Conference landscape.
Yeah. This is, you just mentioned, a very interesting basketball team. And watching them play tonight, opposed to what we saw here 3 or 4 weeks ago when the Jazz played them, it's a different basketball team. And Willie Green has done a very good job. I think that now Ingram's confidence is sky high. And McCollum obviously has made a big difference in this, in this team. But Jazz just didn't have it tonight. I'm just what else can you say?
Let's address one of the most important questions of all. J.C. Ernst says that this was the first game he's watched live in a month. He was so excited, but maybe he's bad luck. Now, J.C., how many games in January did you watch? Because we need to know that before we decide whether we're banishing you away from watching. I told Craig Bullerjack that it was because he was a traitor and wore a soccer jersey before the game.
Yeah.
But that was in support of Real Salt Lake's opening night, so that seemed all right. JC, if you watched all the games in January, then we will have to banish you. I mean, the one concern that is somewhat reoccurring here would be the issue of length. That long teams really seem to bother the Jazz. Long teams that switch bother the Jazz even more.
Yeah. We saw that last year against the Clippers. I thought maybe the Jazz were going to be able to solve that problem. We did get some length, but that switching defense out there it's giving the Jazz some problems. And I didn't think they had a comfortable looking 3 tonight because of that length. Donovan gets his shot blocked, in shooting a corner 3 by Jones. And they just didn't have that comfortable look. And think about the game, Jack, David, especially at the start of the game. It felt like the Jazz was speeding up. Their pace was trying to pick up on the offensive side of the floor because of the way the defense was defending them and recovering, out there on the floor.
By the way, the Pelicans coming in had only allowed opponents to shoot 31% from 3, best in the NBA since they had made the trade and since they gone to this long lineup. There really may be, the other thing to watch is keep watching this Pelican team because there might be something going on in the NBA with the way Cleveland played 3 7-footers. Willie Green talked about it pregame tonight. They're now playing 2 7-footers and 2 guys that are 6'9". Length may be becoming more and more important than it's ever been before. This league is not going small in any way, shape, or form. It's going skilled and long.
I think skill is probably long. It's those players have been there, but the skill part, I think, is what you're talking about. That's really, really making a big difference with some teams, and you can really see it with this basketball team. Boy, those guys are really skilled.
One other note, by the way, Bojan Bogdanović looked to be playing without tape on his finger, at least without the black cast on his finger today, but he went 1 of 11 and almost looked more uncomfortable. All right, that is Postcast. We'll talk to you from Oklahoma City on Sunday. Have a great one. Talk to you soon.